Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. What if I told you your voice isn't just meant to be heard, but felt? There's a fire in your story, a truth the world needs, but too many are still whispering when they were born to resonate. I'm Brad Walsh, and I created a free masterclass called Empower Your Voice, 5 Secrets to Becoming an In-Demand Podcast Guest, because I believe your voice deserves a stage. If you're ready to speak with power, purpose, and presence, it's time to own your truth, be heard, and be unforgettable. Click the link in the show notes to sign up now. Hello there, Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography podcast, a platform. Actually, let me start over again. Sorry. Hello there, Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography podcast, a platform that was created to help elevate and amplify the voices of women through sharing their stories. Today, my guest is Regina Huber. She is a transformational leadership coach, an international speaker, a best-selling author, and the CEO of Transform Your Performance. Welcome, Regina. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me on, Brad. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm totally delighted to speak with you.
I am absolutely honored and excited to jump in and share all about the beautiful light you put out into the world through the work you do and a little bit about your story and your journey. So with that being said, let's jump right in. Now, as a transformational leadership coach, how do you personally define leadership?
That is always a very interesting question, right? So I don't see leadership as a rigid set of skills and traits, but rather as a dynamic, human-centered practice, ideally, right? And a practice that is rooted in authenticity, adaptability, and trust. So in my ideal world, leadership is heart-centered, it's self-aware and self-leading. It is authenticity, as I said already. It is adaptive, it's value-driven, and it's based on co-creation, to put it in a nutshell.
I love that, because co-creation, we can't do this thing called entrepreneurship alone. We can't do this thing called life alone, nor were we meant to. And I love that you mentioned heart-led leadership, because that's so important. And I'm hearing and seeing a lot more of that today through conversation. And we're seeing a shift in that. Now we just need to get the corporate environment to shift into that heart-led leadership mindset and way of thinking and way of being.
Wouldn't that be nice?
It would be, absolutely. And so what inspired you to become a transformational leadership coach? Was there a pivotal moment or an experience that led you to this path?
Absolutely. There was definitely a moment that was pivotal, very pivotal. I moved to New York City because of it and created this business, literally. There was a moment in Brazil when I owned my business in Brazil, and I had a not so nice experience with a fraudulent business partner, which eventually led me to close the business down. It was a brick and mortar business. So it was a very frustrating and very painful experience. And at the time, it was hard to see the blessing in it. But of course, there always is one in the end. In the midst of it, it's not easy to see it. After this experience, I moved to New York City, as I said, and I was thinking about how to bring all my eclectic experience on several continents together into something that is meaningful and that provides value to the world, and that's also at the same time fulfilling to myself. And that's how Transform Your Performance was born. And of course, it wasn't born in a day, it was an evolution.
Yeah. That, I love that you mentioned that too, because we do, when things happen for us, I'm going to say for us, because a lot of people look at it, this is happening to me. Why is this happening to me? We can't see the forest for the trees. It seems like the worst possible thing that could be happening. And in the end, it works out and ends up being the best possible thing that could happen for us, because something else is around the corner, something better, something different, something bigger for us is just around the corner. The universe, I just wrote a post about this morning. The universe always has our back. It gives us what we need when we need it. Even though it may not seem like it at the time, it is. It usually is.
Yeah. And a good question to ask is always, how is this for me?
Yeah.
So, yes, the universe has our back, as you said, or you could also look at it in a way that I created my universe. It's my hologram. So, why would it
Yeah.
not? And why? Maybe I created this for myself, which is what I believe to have a certain experience and yeah, and do something with it.
Very true. I just finished reading a book, A Happy Pocket Full of Money, and the author talks about that in the book. He says, we are the creator of our own issues, whether that be good or bad. We're the ones who create them, whether we want to believe that or not. That's exactly what happens. That situation that we created, that we made that happen. Now, what that was for, that takes some work to sit down and think about what you've done and reflect on what's happened and what you've been through and figure out why this is happening.
Absolutely.
And figure out what the change is, what the shift needs to be.
Absolutely. And how it is for me.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
sometimes it's to learn a practical lesson, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
to also transmute something, whether it's a belief, whether it's an emotion, and most of the time it's both.
Yeah, absolutely. As painful as that may be at the
Yeah,
time, it's being able to sit down and reflect and think about it and take a look within. Sometimes we don't like to look within because we don't like what we see, but it's necessary in order to grow, to expand.
absolutely. Yes, I agree.
So, how have these experiences or that moment, those moments help shape the Regina you are today, both personally and professionally?
So, Brad, I believe that everything shapes us. Every single experience we have, every interaction, whether it's just somebody sitting on the other side of the subway train, whether it's someone that we have a more continuous or long-term relationship with. Everything shapes us from small things to big things. And my multinational and my multicultural background helps me understand people from different cultures more easily. That's definitely something that I want to mention here. And so my clientele has always been quite diverse, which I personally love because I just enjoy change. I thrive in change. I know not everybody does, but I do. And I also can work with my clients in several different languages, which is again is change. And I enjoy that doing that as well. So I speak 5 languages, but I work in 4. That's always great to me because this way I also keep them alive. Of course, most of my
Yeah.
work is in English, admittedly, but not only.
But it's diverse that you're able to communicate in, well, work in 4 different languages, communicate in 5. I think that's amazing. Absolutely incredible. It just expands your reach in the business.
Yes, and you know what it also does? It actually also opens up my horizon because language is an expression of culture, and each language has different structures because it's a reflection of how people think in those cultures. And so that's a very interesting thing to observe as well.
Not to mention also, it keeps your speaking skills and understanding skills sharp in those different languages. If you're using them on a somewhat regular basis, that helps you.
Absolutely. And again, I just love languages, so it's fun. It's something I enjoy doing, and yeah, and it also has made me a little bit of a wordsmith. So I question words. The words we use, like time management, those words that make no sense at all. I've been used forever, and just because everybody always says it, we say it. I'm somebody who likes to go against that a bit.
I love it. Can you share with us what you were doing for a living before you made the jump into entrepreneurship? And what was the catalyst for that shift?
Yeah, absolutely. For the most part, I worked at the Boston Consulting Group, a global consulting firm in Europe, in the US, and in Latin America. So that was a total of about 16 years. I worked with them twice, though. I left them once. And yes, and at 27, I unexpectedly was promoted into a leadership role in Madrid, in the Madrid office in Spain. And then I helped them open the Lisbon office, so Portugal, and the Sao Paulo office, Brazil. And I also took a role in between, that was a role in Argentina for a startup before I was hired back for the San Francisco office of BCG. And after that, I decided I'm just going to pack up now and move back to Argentina and open a bed and breakfast. And that was my first business.
Wow, quite a difference.
Absolutely. and a challenging one too. Brick and mortar and corrupt authorities is always a challenge.
I'm
And we
sure.
have those
Absolutely.
everywhere, but I have had
Yeah.
a brick and mortar business in the US or in Europe.
Yeah. And so, how do you define transformation, and how is it different from personal growth or self
Well,
improvement?
thank you for this question. I really love this question. I'd like to expand on it a little bit more because I think it's very
Yeah.
interesting. As I said before, I love wordsmithing and picking words apart. So that's one of the reasons. So it's also why I don't usually use the term self-improvement, actually, because there's really nothing to be improved about who you are or what you are. We are all consciousness. And this concept that we need to improve or change who we are is a bit misleading, in my opinion. It's a misleading concept, and it leads to a lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-judgment, lack of self-esteem, and that's not really helpful. So we can improve our skills, for sure, or we could develop our talents, and we can work on our mindset and whatnot. There's a lot we could work on, but how could we improve ourselves? It's a weird concept to me. So on the other hand, moving on to personal growth, which you also mentioned, I think that is about expansion. It's about expressing more of who we already are at our core, and in a way that's more connected to our truth and more aligned with our truth and with our values and whatnot. So it's a process of uncovering and amplifying our potential, in my opinion, and not so much of fixing something broken. So again, it's not so much about becoming, because we already are, but it's about amplifying.
Right.
And then, of course, transformation goes deeper, in my opinion. Okay. So it is a shift in how we be, not just what we do, right? It's about releasing also old identities, belief systems, outdated stuff, or dissolving stuck emotions that don't serve us, freeing ourselves of those survival patterns in a way, and stepping into a more aligned way of living and of leading. In the case of leadership, involves a more profound energetic shift as well, and there's a consciousness shift, right? We talked about consciousness before. That changes also even how we relate to ourselves in the world. Yeah, and so you could say transformation is a reconfiguration of our internal operating system.
I love that.
And then if you want to go a step further, you could talk about liberation, which is the ultimate goal for me.
Yeah. Yeah, please expand on that if you'd like.
Yeah, so liberation goes actually beyond transformation. So it's more like again, it's related to consciousness. It's that consciousness that we can access when we move into the present moment, when we become present. And sometimes I even say you cannot become present because you are presence. So we could have a discussion around that and how that works. But it's really that feeling of freedom, of inner power, of peace that you can access in the present moment, which is really the only moment that exists, because the past and the future is only in our minds.
Exactly, 100%. Now, do you see this happening in corporate more often, where you mentioned about the being and not doing, because we've been conditioned to believe that we've got to do, we're always hustling and grinding, and that's a bullshit narrative, I believe, in my opinion. And the piece about consciousness, this is a very hard concept to sell to the corporate minds. So have you seen a shift in that kind of mindset and attitude in your work and in the companies that you're working with and through?
So I see it more in the people and the individuals, right? Because in the end, a company somehow benefits from your business and from your need to be always productive. That's why we are brought up in that way, and we are educated into the system, out of our power, right? To say it very bluntly.
That's a whole other podcast interview. We could go.
I know, but see, I like to be blunt sometimes, but
yeah, no, I love it too. I think it's great.
So most companies don't really have a true interest in that, and not saying all. I do believe, though, that if we brought more conscious leadership into corporate, they would actually eventually benefit, because it has a huge impact on the people, and the people are the heart of the organization. There's less competition, also means less attrition, and competition comes with that productivity. I'm always like, I need to be the first and blah, blah, blah. And then
Yes.
if we move toward more co-creation, we also reduce the amount of conflict, which takes up time and energy. That's my opinion.
Competition, another bullshit mindset that has been bred into us and conditioned into us. I always say the only competition that I have is me. As long as I can look back and see that I've improved and I'm constantly improving, that's the only competition, because it's a falsehood, because there is no competition. There's more than enough abundance to go around, and no one else is me. That's one of my superpowers, is no one else sees or looks at a problem the way I do. As a photographer, no one sees an image the way I do. No one has the same eyes as me. So the competition thing is a falsehood. It's wrong. And so we need to shift that narrative so that people start stepping into this abundance mindset and knowing that there is no competition. But this is a very difficult thing to get into the corporate minds, because the corporate minds see this as woo and all of these other things. It's a much harder environment to introduce this type of thinking into.
Yes. And at the same time, I would say, let's try it every single time, because I went into banks quite a bit in New York City and talked about energy. And if you do it in the right way, it makes, and in a way that it makes sense to people, then they say, oh, well, this is interesting.
Yeah, that's the way. We've got to keep talking about it. It's conversations like this, like you and I are having right now, and we continue to have these conversations with people about this way of thinking and about adopting this way of thinking and this mindset. That's how we're going to change things, is to continually talk about it with people and share with people.
Absolutely.
What do you believe separates a good leader from a truly transformational one?
I believe a transformational leader leads from deep self-awareness and authenticity. It depends on, again, on how do we define transformational leader. I'm referring here more to the transformation with regards to people. Okay. Because to me, that's about creating trust, elevating others by the way we are as leaders, by the way we show up as leaders, not just by what we say. And when we go beyond managing outcomes and recognize and ignite the potential in our teams, that's when there's this shift in the energy. That's where when a team becomes a thriving team, right?
Yeah.
And also, to come back to co-creation, they help build co-creative environments where people thrive, and that includes themselves. So that's my definition: thriving leaders for thriving teams.
I love it. How do you personally define success in leadership, not just in business, but also in life?
To me, it's about living, and for leaders, also leading on your own terms, or leading yourself on your own terms. We're all leaders of ourselves, of our own lives, and in a way that feels authentic and fulfilling and aligned with who you are, right? So if you have a big title and a big paycheck, but are totally stressed out because you maybe work a ton of hours, have no free time, or you allow others to coerce you into going against your and playing along with some agendas that might not be aligned with what you believe in, then that's not success to me. And we've seen that happening very blatantly in the last few years. But then you probably would not call yourself a thriving leader, I would guess.
Yeah.
Because you're playing a role in a game that you don't really want to play. And how is that even leadership?
Yeah, for sure. Now, in your experience, what are a couple of the biggest leadership myths that need to be broken?
One I see is that you cannot be vulnerable as a leader, and you cannot admit your mistakes, right? Because you have to be always perfect and appear perfect, and that's and then the other one is also that being heart-centered is being soft or weak. In reality, actually, heart-centered leadership takes immense strength. It requires emotional intelligence. It requires the willingness to connect on a human level. It requires courage, which, by the way, comes from the heart, right? And it's not about being overly nice or avoiding important conversations. That's not what it's leading with clarity, compassion, courage, integrity, all the good stuff, even when it's uncomfortable. Yeah. And it's also,
I love all of that.
it's also about considering how people are affected by decisions, and every single one. Right? And that's what really builds trust in the long run.
Yeah. I love that, because leaders do need to admit when they're wrong. And also know that it's okay to ask for help. Asking for help is not a sign of
No.
weakness. I think it's strength when you can admit you need help. And that's what your team is there for, to lean on. You don't have all the answers as a leader. You're a human being. You're fallible. It's okay to not have all the answers and to not know everything. Lean on your team. That's part of what they're there for, is for that support and guidance. But this, again, all of this ties back to that heart-led leadership and bringing that into the corporate environment and having these conversations and making it the norm.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
It would be so beneficial to all companies, I think, to adopt this mindset and this way of thinking around business. It is shifting. I think we will get there. It's going to take time for sure, but I think we can get there.
It starts with every single individual. This is why that's also progress.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. How do we redefine leadership in a way that includes more diverse voices, perspectives, and lived experiences?
So for me personally, it's about moving away from checkboxes, quotas, and all the political agendas that claim to promote diversity, but actually divide us more than they unite us oftentimes. So to me, it's never about categories. It's always about individuals, each individual. Right. So listen to real stories, value lived experiences that you listen to, and not labels. I think that is a big mistake that has been made, or actually that has been directed very intentionally, unfortunately. Because when you actually listen to the individual and you consider and you see each individual, then that's when you create a safe space, and not when you say, oh, you look like that, or you have this, so okay, you get this, or whatever. That just creates that environment. It's never going to be beneficial to anybody in the end.
No, absolutely agree with you. What is one defining moment in your career that completely shifted how you see leadership and talent development?
Yeah, there's not only one moment for sure, but there was one when I was put in a leadership role at the age of 27, which showed me that with intention, with authenticity and transparent communication, one could be a decent leader without checking all the boxes, without having any leadership experience or background or studies. And then I have again and again seen leaders who lead from the heart and who reach people in that way, and also the opposite of people who have all the studies and are lousy leaders.
Absolutely. If you could change one belief or behavior in the world of leadership, what would it be and why?
Stop saying or promising that you will empower others. I know that you have empowerography, and is a very important concept, right? But as a person, empower means to put power, place power into something or someone, and I cannot do that. So allow people, guide people as a leader, teach your team members to empower themselves. What does that mean? To connect with their already existing intrinsic power and tell them not to rely on others to empower them. And there are ways of doing that. And yeah, just really show it to them also. I think
This is instilling that belief in others that they already have everything within them that they need. They just need guidance on how to tap into or utilize that power, those skills, whatever it is within them. We all have everything we need within us. But we constantly, again, this ties back to the conditioning and the bullshit beliefs that we need external validation. We need people to validate us, our behaviors, all of these things, when everything's here and it starts here. Everything starts within us.
Yeah, and then we always say we're all one. So what is actually external validation anyway?
Yeah.
That's so many interesting topics for other podcasts. Hey.
Yes, for sure. What is the process in your mind that best supports leadership development?
Leadership development, I think, is best supported by self-awareness, self-leadership. It's really about knowing yourself. It's not so much about studying theoretical leadership stuff. Of course, yes, communication is important. If I had known more about a methodology that I use, for example, in my coaching business, conversational intelligence, that would have helped me for sure. But this is only an example. So some theoretical Knowledge is certainly helpful, but I think it's really about knowing yourself better, because the more you recognize, and you mentioned it before, Brad, when you really, what I call, know what your unique brilliance is, and overall your distinctive uniqueness, which includes both sides of the coin, then you can also see that unique brilliance in others more easily, and that potential that you might not otherwise see as a leader. And you can actually get much more out of your team. And then also, of course, yes, be always curious as a leader, not just in your own learning, but also as you interact with other people. Questions. There's so much we can bring to our awareness through asking questions.
Absolutely. That curiosity bit ties into the whole conversation piece, and actually listening when people speak instead of listening to respond. Be curious, ask questions. How did you arrive at the way you think? Like, what made you think this way? Where did this mindset come from? Where did this way of thinking come from? How did you arrive here? Ask the questions. Be curious.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one other thing that's really important is what we need to focus on is our presence, our leader presence. That includes how to manage and optimize our energy. And I'm sure you see that also in your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. It's key. It's so key. How has your personal journey shaped the way that you approach transformation and leadership in your work?
So it definitely all comes together, right? Because for me, it's everything that I have ever done or experienced before, right? And so my personal journey has shaped who I am, of course. Also, it's shaped what I have seen in leaders around the world. And I also think that in a way, the best way to answer that question is almost by pointing you to my book, Living My Freaking Amazing Life, because that's what led up to it. And it's a very eclectic journey that I have personally lived. It also includes my holistic studies, everything I learned from dance as well. So dance has taught me a myriad of lessons about leading, about presence, about energy, about sharing space, co-creating, diverse expression, individuation. The list goes on.
I love it. What are some essential skills and attributes you focus on developing in women to prepare them for leadership roles?
So again, I'm coming back to the leader presence. I think that's really key for a lot of women, because oftentimes women tell me they're not heard in meetings or seen in meetings. They have trouble speaking up, or when they do, they are talked over, or whatever all those cliches are, but they do happen. And there are ways of counteracting that through specific communication tools, but also through presence. And I think when you really optimize your energy and when you prepare in advance before you move into such a situation, whether it's online or offline, then that can certainly help you. And then, of course, also coming back to the unique brilliance, really knowing, owning, and showing it.
Yes, that's it. Stepping into your power, stepping into your gifts and your uniqueness. That is one of your superpowers. Embrace it, step into it.
Exactly.
What long-term societal impacts do you believe will result from more women stepping into leadership roles and positions?
Yeah, so I believe in general, getting closer to balance is usually a good thing. And I'm not saying we need to have absolutely a 50-50 balance. A lot of women still do prefer the family life and home, and that's totally okay. I want to say that very clearly too. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a very big role. And I admire this role very much. It's not so much about the numbers to me as it is about bringing feminine aspects of leadership into overall leadership, right? So we can create greater harmony in that sense. So we have a lot of examples of females in leading positions, Brad, and especially in politics, who are not bringing anything positive. So it's not about gender. It's about what you bring. We need both, the feminine and the masculine, as above, so below, right? So that's why we also have both in each of us, yin and yang.
I was just going to say that we all have both within us. So it's about tapping into, because again, this whole conditioning piece around corporate is women are taught to, or have been led to believe, that they have to put on this masculine front in the boardroom. They have to be this wear the pantsuits and you have to do this and that and act this way and behave this way because you're a woman. In order to get ahead, you have to adopt male qualities and male traits, but that's not true. Being a woman, that's one of your superpowers. That's one of your gifts. Adopt that, step into that, and own that power.
Yeah. And it will be so much more beneficial, actually, because you playing a role all day is really strenuous. It can really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're being something that you're not. That's tiresome.
Yeah. And inauthentic.
What advice? Sorry,
no, I said
go ahead.
Inauthentic.
Yeah, for sure. What advice do you want to give to women who aspire to leadership but feel like they don't fit the mold?
Do it your way. We don't need more of the traditional mold. Be a trailblazer. Dare to do something different. Maybe have a look at my new paradigm leadership framework if that helps. It's on the page, and see if that resonates. And I'm happy to expand more on it on a call if somebody wants to. But it's really about bringing new paradigms. You don't need to do it in the old way.
No. The old ways, that we need to shift away from that. There's a new way of doing things that we need to step into in order to get ahead and shift things. And that will be huge.
Absolutely.
But looking back on your own leadership journey, what is one piece of advice you wish you had received early on in your career?
One thing is that I would have liked guidance on setting boundaries. I wasn't really great at that at all. So I always worked 1,000 hours and took on even other tasks and whatnot. And they were exciting things sometimes, but there were other ways of doing that. So that's the one thing I think. And then, of course, communication is always key. So I could have used a few communication tools, like the ones I've included in the method that I use, the conversational intelligence ones, for example. That's what I have to say about that.
Okay. Now, when all is said and done, what do you want your leadership legacy to be?
I would like to inspire people to be courageous enough to introduce those new paradigms that we just talked about into leadership. And that includes daring to lead from the heart.
I love that. What is one tip or takeaway that you can share with listeners that they can implement immediately to start embracing their inner leader and reconditioning their mind for the success that they want?
It's one thing that we do far too little of, and that I started doing much more of more recently myself. It's about working on your stuck emotions. Find an effective way. There are several ways for sure, but find one way that works for you to transmute stuck emotions, because that's likely one of the best things you can do for yourself and those around you, and especially as a leader. So either breathe through them and on your own, or get professional help to resolve them. I also just added some new methodologies for this, but there are different ways. Okay, I'm not saying you have to do those. It's also something that I have, as I said, been doing very intensely lately, and it's bringing a lot of change. And of course, I'd always, since I knew how to, and working on limiting beliefs, and often forgot about emotions, though, when I did that. And that was something that was missing for me, I noticed. Because that's
the emotions piece.
That's also what helps us liberate ourselves and move forward in our own way.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that, Regina. Now, as mentioned off the top of the interview, you're a best-selling author, and you mentioned your book briefly here. I was wondering if you could share with us about the book you wrote, the title, the subject, when you wrote it, the inspiration behind writing the book, and what that experience was like for you, putting that out into the world for others to read and to learn.
Yeah, so I wrote 2 books and I co-authored a few other ones. The first one was actually written in 2016 already. It's called Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine. And yes, that one was sold many times, mostly offline, actually, at events that I spoke. And it is about how to prepare mentally, physically, and energetically, basically, for public speaking situations like this one, or like from a stage, or whatever it is, in a meeting, in a job interview. And then my latest book I published it last year. It's called Living My Freakin' Amazing Life, with Freakin with an apostrophe. Life That's Perfect for You as a subtitle. So the complete subtitle is Create the Life That's Perfect for You Anywhere in the World. And so it's really about real life stories. I've taken a ton of risks in my life. Some worked out as desired. others not. And all of them have shaped me and taught me something. And knowing that we create our reality, well, there must have been a reason, as we said before, right? And also created those experiences that I didn't particularly enjoy in the moment, but it is what it is.
Yeah. It's all part of shaping the woman you are today.
Right. And now I have the tools to use any situation to transmute what no longer serves me.
Yes.
Probably never has served me. So we can take so-called adversities and not just use them as an opportunity for practical lessons, but also to upgrade our mindset. And most importantly, an opportunity to really dissolve those undigested emotions, which if we don't do that, then they keep us in that loop that we often call a pattern. Actually, it's a reflection of a stuck emotion in reality. So in my book, I describe some of the highlights of my very eclectic life and journey on several continents, with all the adventures of crazy ones as well. The experiences on 5 continents. And it's meant to inspire people to create a life that fits them and honors who they are. And it includes leadership lessons too.
Beautiful. Very well-rounded. What do you think your unique skill set or superpower is that's helped you become successful?
Yeah, that's a pretty short answer for me. I think it's courage and a strong sense of freedom.
Love it. Now, speaking of success, how do you define that word? What does success mean to you on a personal level?
It's doing the work I love while living the life I love.
Plain and simple. What would you say is one of the most important things you've learned in your life? And what was your life like before you learned it? And what was your life like after you learned it?
To listen to my intuition. I think we all have this experience that sometimes we doubt, is it really the voice of our intuition, or is it some other weird voice that's talking to us? Because we don't even know whose thoughts we think. We don't even know what the next thought is going to be that we're going to think. So it's sometimes a bit challenging, but it is something that I have been practicing, because our intuition is the voice of our truth. And whenever I shushed it or ignored it in the past, I created an undesired experience.
That's a tough one to learn to trust and to hear that voice, to know that voice has got you, and that's your gut. That's your intuition telling you to trust. It's very hard to lean into that. It takes a lot of practice for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talk about the gut and we talk about the heart when it comes to intuitions or heart, because the gut is also, I would almost say the gut is more like this instinctual piece that is very useful too. And people feel it more in the gut and others feel it more in the heart.
Yeah.
We're all different.
Yeah, very true. Very true. What is the word empowerment?
We talked about it a little bit already, right? So to me, it only exists in the word self-empowerment, or as a concept to help others. Like of course, I've also used it, for example, for self-empowering what-if questions, the way you use it in your work, right? And again, what I said before. So we can't really empower others. We can guide them to empower themselves. We can help them along the way.
Okay, we're going to jump into a little rapid fire section. So the next grouping of questions just be 1, 2, 3 word answer type thing, okay? How would you describe yourself in one word?
Eclectic.
If you could teach the world one thing, what would it be? If you could be remembered for one thing, what would that be?
Liberator of genius.
What is one thing you love about yourself that is not related to your physical appearance?
Excellent capacity of adaptation while staying true to myself.
What is one thing you want but cannot buy with money?
A peaceful world.
What is one word to define the woman that you're becoming?
So I'm not becoming anyone or anything, but I am. I'm aiming to express more of that.
Love that. Great answer. That concludes our rapid fire section. Now back to our regular.
Okay.
I created a bonus question for you that I did not send you ahead of time. If you could take, Regina, one feeling or one belief and bottle it and give it to people, what would that feeling be or belief?
Love.
Love that. If you could step into my shoes, what question would you have asked yourself that I didn't ask you?
So I would have asked me, who was my role model?
Okay. Who was your role
Pippi
model?
Longstocking.
Why Pippi?
Because she lives life on her own terms. She doesn't give shit about what other people think.
Shit, I swear
It's okay. Yeah. Okay, what other people think. And she lives a pretty free life, and she thinks for herself. She doesn't let herself to be programmed, and she's very adventurous and strong.
Pippi Longstocking. All right. What is an unexpected blessing or occurrence in your life that you're grateful for?
Someone showed up in my life several years ago as my favorite friend, my favorite dancer, and my support system and my source of joy. And his name is Chris. He stayed with me a few years, and that was just right.
Beautiful. What is one lesson that your career has taught you that you think everybody should learn at some point in their life?
Learning by doing is always an option. Just trust that you can.
Regina, what is your why?
If I had never done the Why Institute test, then I would say it's freedom. But according to the Why Institute, it's challenge.
What's the Why Institute?
The Why Institute, they do like a test process where you can find out your why and your characteristics and how much percentage of the population has the same why. In my case, that would be 9.6%. And so it's just interesting. I thought it was interesting. So it's definitely, there's some truth to it for sure, because it says not following the rules is typical, being a trailblazer, thinking differently, living outside the box. I actually like to talk about throwing the entire box out. That's something I've heard. And it's about innovation, and that also brings challenge for sure.
For sure. What would you say is one of your biggest life or teachable moments, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, again, so I think there are quite a few in my book. There were several moments of big financial loss and emotional turmoil, and they led to major pivots and mindset shifts as well, but also to challenging moments. My why is not challenging. My why, according to the Why Institute.
If you had the opportunity to sit down and have a 1-hour conversation with one woman, any woman in the world, who would it be and why?
Apart from Pippi Longstocking, would be she's a former client of mine in Botswana, and man, this woman has incredible potential, and she soaks it all up, runs with it. I'm sure the moment will come when we work together or play together again. I think sometimes refer that when we create something together again. And that is always a great time spent.
If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Stop underestimating yourself.
That's a powerful one. We all do that. We all go through that. Lastly, Regina, if you were to deliver what would that last 30 seconds sound like? What words of wisdom would you impart?
Stop trying to fix yourself or to fit in. There's nothing wrong with you. Lead with your full presence from the inside out. Trust your brilliance. First of all, get clarity on what your unique brilliance is so you can trust it, and trust your own energy. Let your unique voice be heard. Be unfiltered sometimes, even when it's not always easy. The world doesn't need more copies of somebody else. It needs the most expressed of who you are and the most courageous and authentic version of you. The blue tiger.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here with me today, for sharing a bit about your story, your journey, the beautiful light that you put out into the world through all the work you do. It's been an absolute pleasure. I have thoroughly enjoyed every minute of our conversation. Thank you so much for being here today with me. I appreciate you.
Thank you for preparing awesome questions and for this being so much fun. I can only just say the same. Every minute was worth it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Once again, my name is Brad Welsh, host of your Empowerography podcast. Today, my guest has been Regina Huber. She is a transformational... Hold on, let me try this again. The gain keeps dropping on my mic. I'm going to say the outro again. Thank you so much, Regina. Once again, my name is Brad Welsh, host of your Empowerography podcast. Today, my guest Huber, she is a transformational leadership coach, an international speaker, a best-selling author, and the CEO of Transform Your Performance. Thank you, Regina. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you again, and to everyone listening. I'm very grateful for you all.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at visuphoria.ca, follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast, and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman.